In today's tutorial, we'll be creating these star trails. They're usually made using long exposure photography, but let's create a cool animation using simulation nodes in Blender. So in our default scene, we'll bring our cursor to the junction of these two windows, click and drag to create a new window and change this from the 3D viewport to the geometry node editor. Then we'll go ahead and press this plus button to create a new geometry node tree, after which we'll select the group input and tap X to delete it. Now we need a disk on top of which the points will be distributed, so we'll search for a UV sphere and then just plug this into the group output. Then we can change the radius from 1 meter to something like 5 meters to make it much larger. Now we want to keep only the top few faces and we want to delete everything beneath a certain Z value. So we can press Shift A and search for a position node, and then we can separate this out using a separate XYZ node so that we get access to just the Z value of the position of every single point. Now we press Shift A and search for a compare node so that we can compare the Z value with a specific number. So let's plug the Z value into A and check if the Z value is less than a certain number, it should be deleted. So now we'll press Shift A and search for a delete geometry node and then plug that right here and plug the result from this compare node into the selection. Now we can start increasing the B value until we have just the number of segments that we want. So I think this many should be good enough, but I want it to be a lot more flat. So I'll press Shift A and search for a transform geometry and then plug that in after the delete geometry, and we'll just scale it up on the X and the Y by maybe 2 units. Now I want this to be rotated about the origin so that it is facing in this direction, so that when we look forward we see this disk. So I'll rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees, and that seemed to move it in the opposite direction of what I want, so I'll make it minus 90 degrees. Apart from that, I also want it to be pushed back by a little bit, so I'll just translate it on the Y back by maybe 5 units. Next, I can just set up my scene before I start the simulation nodes section. So for the scene setup, I'll select my camera, press Alt G to clear location, Alt R to clear rotation, and then press RX 90 to rotate the camera on the x-axis by 90 degrees. Then I'll press 0 to go into my camera view and just press GY to move it back by a bit, and I'll also go to my camera properties and change the focal length down to 25. Then I'll just bring it back in till it covers approximately all of the circle that I have. Then I'll go to my viewport display, increase passport out all the way to 1, and I'll go to my render properties, switch on bloom and screen space reflections, or just bloom. I might not be using screen space reflections. Then I'll go to my output properties, change the frame rate to 30 frames per second, end frame make it 300 so that it's a 10-second long animation. Output folder can be wherever you want it to be. File format, we're going to choose FFmpeg video, and encoding, we're going to change the container to MPEG-4, and output quality, we're going to choose perceptually lossless. Now, the main reason why we did all of the defaults right now is so that we get the frame rate accurately while we do the simulations in the simulation zone. Now let's select our geometry node object again, and then press Shift A and search for a simulation zone. Then I can plug the transform geometry into the input of the simulation zone and take the output from the simulation zone and plug it into the group output. Now what I want is a bunch of points to be instanced every single frame and then have those points slowly move over time. So I'll press Shift A and search for a distribute points on faces node and plug it in before the simulation input. Now you can decide how many points you want. So I'm actually going to go with a density of maybe 8 or 7 just to reduce a few of the points. But just so that my laptop renders everything faster while recording, I'll keep it at 5 for now. Then to add in these particles plus new particles every single frame, I have to search for a join geometry node and then plug that in after the simulation input. Then I have to take these points and plug them into the join geometry. But right now, if I just play the simulation, all the points are being added to the exact same places, so we don't see any trails being formed. To get the trails to form, we actually need to rotate all of these points about the current y-axis. So I'll press Shift A and search for another transform geometry node so that every single one of my points are rotated, and I'll just rotate it on the z-axis by a value of maybe 0.1 degrees every single frame. So now let's just start the animation and you can see what's happening. Now obviously I accidentally put the z-axis, it has to rotate about the y-axis. So let's change this to 0 and make this 0.1. Now if we go to frame 0 and just play this, you can see how we get the rotation. But I don't want this to be in the clockwise direction, I want them to be anti-clockwise. So I'm going to make this minus 0.1, and now if I play the animation, this is what I get. If you feel like the trails are being formed too fast, you can always reduce this to something even lower, maybe 0.05, and that way you'll get the trails being formed much slower. But make sure that by the time you reach frame 300, you essentially have long enough trails for the effect that you're going for, and you don't have them too long such that there's so much of overlap that it doesn't look good anymore. The best image should be at frame 300 essentially. So I think this looks perfectly all right, and I'm getting my best frame at around frame 300 itself, so I'm going to leave it at this particular speed. So if you're happy with that, you can always save your file and then go to the simulation nodes section of the physics properties and just bake the simulation so that you can play it back much faster every time you make changes here and there. But before you bake it, if you want to capture some attributes, you should do it right now. So anything before the simulation input has to be made before you bake it, anything after the simulation output can be changed even after the bake is complete. So if I want every single one of these stars to have a different color, when you actually play this, you see there are multiple instances being formed essentially for the trails. If I was to use an object info node in the material properties while creating the shader, the trail would not have a single color. The trail would have random different colors, which obviously wouldn't work. If this is maybe a greenish star, the entire trail should be greenish, or if it's yellowish, the entire trail has to be yellowish. So we have to capture a random value for each point that remains the same for the entire trail. That's why we have to capture a value before the simulation input itself. So to add in a single value here and get the same number of outputs, let's just press shift right click and drag to create a new junction over here. Remember, to do this you need to have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled from your preferences, and now you can just add in a node over here. So press shift A and search for a capture attribute node. Now essentially we want to capture a random value from 0 to 1 itself. So I'll press shift A and search for a random value node, and I'll plug this value into the value of the capture attribute. Now as long as the seed is not changing for every frame and the seed of this distribute points on faces is also not changing, the entire trail will have the same color. But using a capture attribute is not going to give us access to the attribute that we just captured. So instead of a capture attribute, I'm going to press shift A and search for a store named attribute, and I'll be using this instead. So I'll plug the points into the geometry and this output geometry into this junction that we created, and then I'll take this random value and plug that into the value of the store named attribute, and I'll delete the capture attribute. Now for the name of this store named attribute, we have to give it a name that we will use later on. So I'll call this star call because this value is going to determine the color of the stars. So once I have that done, I can just bake the simulation nodes. So once it's baked, you can see what the animation currently looks like. If you want to see a realistic idea, you can change this to frame dropping, and that way you see a realistic idea of the speed at which these particles are growing. Now obviously I don't want them to just be rendered out as points, because if you switch off overlays and go to rendered view, you'll see absolutely nothing. So we need to actually instance some mesh onto these points. So let's go ahead and after the simulation output, press shift A and search for an instance on points node. Then for the instance, I'll just search for an icosphere, and I'll change the radius from 1 to 0.005, and then I'll plug this mesh into the instance of the instance on points. And that way, even if you switch off overlays and you go to rendered view, you should be able to see thin streaks. Now the scale for every single one of them is the exact same, but if you want to add in some variation, remember we are storing an attribute over here called star call, which is a unique number from 0 to 1 for every single one of these trails. So we can technically use that number to control the scale of each of these star trails. So that way we get some stars larger than others. So I'll press shift A and search for a named attribute node, and then with this named attribute node, I can choose star call over here and then pass that through a color ramp so that we don't have some trails becoming 0 in size, and we can just control the min and max values. So I'll plug the attribute into the factor of the color ramp, and I'll change this black slider from black value of 0 to a value of 0.4, and then I'll plug this into the scale. So that way we just get a little bit of variation in the thicknesses of these lines that we are creating. So now that we're done with that, we can go ahead and actually set up a material for these stars. So I just have to set the material in the geometry node section first. So press shift A and search for a set material node, plug that in after the instance on points, and choose the material from here. Then I'll switch over from the geometry node editor to the shader editor, and I'll switch my viewport shading to rendered as well. Now I don't want this default light to be present, so I'll just select it and delete it, and then with the geometry node object selected, I should have the default material already present because we use the default cube, and then I'll just select the principled BSDF and tap X to delete it. Then I'll press shift A and search for an emission node, and I'll plug the emission into the surface of the material output. Then I'll press shift A and search for a color ramp node, and I'll choose the different colors of the stars that I want. So I'll change this from linear to constant, and maybe I want some bluish stars. So I'll select this and I'll just make the brightness all the way to 1, and I'll make it a fairly desaturated blue, so something like that. Then I'll select this next handle, maybe I'll keep it at white, and then I'll control click, add in a new stop, and I'll change this one to maybe a yellowish color, again very desaturated itself. Maybe one more slightly pinkish color, so a desaturated pink just like that. Maybe another version of the blue, so let's just select maybe this time a purplish bluish color, again fairly desaturated, so something like that should be all right. Then I'll press shift A and search for an attribute node, and then I'll just choose the same name that I had, which was star call, and the type, remember, we had stored it for individual points and not for the entire geometry. So we have to change this from geometry to instancer, and that way we should be able to get the factor that we stored. So we can plug this into the factor and plug this color into the color of the emission socket. Now you see how each trail gets its own unique color and it follows that color throughout, which is exactly what we wanted. If we were to use an object info random, in that case, you'd see each trail will consist of many different colors, and that's not what we wanted, which is why we couldn't use this particular method that we generally use in other tutorials. So let's just delete this object info and use the factor value itself. Now to get a nice bloom, we can increase the strength from 1 to something like 10, and now we just have some nice bloom. Next, let's go to our world properties and change the background all the way to black, after which we'll add in a ground plane and all of the background elements. So let's press Shift A and search for a mesh plane. Let's scale this plane up by maybe 10, and then right now we can't see the plane because it is exactly at the same level as our camera. So we'll press GZ to bring it down, and now you'll be able to see the plane. So let's just bring it down to something like -2 units and then scale it down on the y-axis until the plane comes behind this star field that we have. Let's just go back to object mode for the time being so that we can actually see what we're doing. So obviously we don't want the plane to be present behind the stars, so just scale it down on the y until we have it completely inside the stars. Then press Ctrl A and just apply scale. Now to give this some random rough terrain, let's switch this from the shader editor to the geometry node editor and add in a new geometry node tree. Then just press Shift A and search for a subdivide mesh node, plug that in after the group input, and just increase the levels to something like 4 or 5. And remember, when you're doing all of this, it's best that you actually stay towards the beginning of the frames, because as you go towards the end, it will be much more laggy because there are many more particles that Blender has to calculate. However, during rendering, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Then I'll press Shift A and search for a set position and plug that in after the subdivide mesh. For the offset, I'll just search for a noise texture. And as usual, noise textures are centered around 0.5. We need it to be centered around 0. So I have to search for a vector math node, and I have to subtract 0.5 on all of the axes. So change this to subtract and change this to 0.5 on all of these axes, and then plug the color into the first socket. Then to control the strength of the effect, I'll press Shift D and then change this from subtract to scale, and then plug this into the first socket and plug this vector into the offset. Now I can scale it up to maybe something like 2, and I'm also going to subdivide the mesh once again, and I'll change the scale on the noise texture to maybe 1, and I'll just scale this up a bit to create a fairly rough terrain. Then as usual, I'll press Shift A and search for a set material, plug that in, then I'll go to the material properties, add in a new material slot, and then I'll choose the same material over here. Then I can switch over to my shader editor, and I'll just delete the principled BSDF so that it becomes pitch black. So if I go to my render viewport now, you can see how we just have a black border down here. It can't be seen because the background is also black, but we'll change that in a bit. So to add in that background, we'll press Shift A and search for another plane. This time we'll rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees, and then just press GY to move it back till it goes behind the stars. Once it goes behind the stars, press S and just scale it up till it covers the entire field of view. So let's just switch back to object view, and you can see scaling it to about there is good enough. Then go back to rendered view, and now we'll add in a new material. This one again is not going to have the principled BSDF, so let's select it and delete it, and then press Shift A and search for an emission node. Now I want the color to essentially be a gradient from a pinkish color or a purplish color to a bluish color to a black. So I'll press Shift A and search for a gradient texture, and then plug this into the emission color, and then I can connect this into the output to see what we have. Now clearly the gradient isn't in the direction that I want, so I'll press Ctrl T to add in the mapping and texture coordinate nodes. Remember, you need Node Wrangler for that shortcut to work, otherwise you can add it in manually. And then we can switch this from generated to object, and we can then rotate it about the z-axis by 90 degrees. Then to actually control the colors and everything, you can use a color ramp. So press Shift A and search for a color ramp node, plug that in just before the emission and after the gradient texture. And now the white regions, I want them to be purplish pinkish, so let's select the white and make it this purplish pinkish color. Then as we shift up, I want there to be a more bluish color here, so let's just select this again, make it completely bright, and then make it this sort of a color. And now to actually stretch this out, let's go down and just change the scale value on the mapping node. So on the y-axis, we can scale it down, maybe a value of 0.3, and then make sure that you change the location as well on the x-axis until you get the gradient in the exact section that you want. So make sure that you play around with this till you get the exact thing that you're looking for. I'm also going to switch this to ease, And now I'm finally going to reduce the strength from 1 to a value of maybe 0.4 or maybe even lower, just to get this really nice effect. Finally, I'm going to add in a tree right in the center, for which you need to go to your edit preferences, and under the add-ons, make sure you have sapling tree gen enabled. As long as you have this enabled, you can just add in a tree very easily by pressing Shift A and searching for a curve, and under your curves, you should have a new object called sapling tree gen. So just add in the sapling tree generator, and then you can press 0 to go out of your camera view and switch back to object mode so that you can see the tree that you have. And if this is the tree that you want, well and good. Otherwise, you can always expand this drop down over here. And remember, the drop down remains as long as you don't make any other changes like moving, rotating, scaling, or anything like that. But essentially, you can load in different presets just to get the type of tree that you want. So maybe I'll go with this Japanese maple, and I'll just change the random seed to something, and I'll scale it down using this scale value, and then I'll press GZ to bring it down. So just select it and press GZ, and then press 0 on your numpad to go back into the camera view, and then place it by moving it back on the Y-axis until you have it positioned exactly where you want. Then you can go back to your rendered view, and if you switch off your overlays, this is what you have. Once you're happy with the composition of the tree, the landscape, and the trails, you can go ahead and press render animation. I hope this was a fun one and you definitely learned something from it. If you've watched so far into the video, thank you so much for watching once again, and definitely check out other videos on my channel. I post videos every single day, so until the next one comes out tomorrow, keep creating and stay creative.